Hello and welcome, everybody. My name
Hi,
is Victoria, and I am very excited to be here today with my dear friend Punit. Hello, Punit.
hi Victoria. How are you doing?
I am great, and I am looking forward to having this conversation with you. Punit and I met some years ago in San Francisco when I was living there. Punit still lives there. Um, and
I
our
think it's going to be
connect
10 years, if I'm
it's
not
gonna be
mistaken.
10 years, really? Wait, which year do we have right now? 2024.
No, we are in
No,
2025,
no, no.
Victoria.
Okay, okay, 2025. You're right, thank you. Yeah, so actually almost 10 years.
Right?
Like
Like
I think it was 2016 when I was there.
2016. Okay, so 9 years. You're
Yeah.
right.
Anyway,
Uh,
long time
yeah,
ago. Very
long
long
time
time
ago.
ago.
Very long time ago.
And I would have never expected that our relationship developed this way. Honestly, I would have never expected that. So I am in awe and very grateful for everything that we've experienced with one another, mainly through conversations. I mean, it was back then in San Francisco that we experienced more in person, but then over the last few years, talking with each other.
Yeah. I think
And
it's interesting how we even met because I always narrate the story to like some of my friends to say, and of course, like one of my best friends is still my best friend who was dating your best friend, and that's
yeah.
how we got connected at the
Yeah,
time. And yeah, it's kind of crazy to see that that relationship has obviously like fell apart, but this relationship has continued and sustained. And I feel like I genuinely feel that this is a much deeper connection, and maybe some past life connection. I
yeah,
really feel that
yeah,
when I do hang out with you and talk to you.
yeah, yeah, me too. And yeah, it is beautiful. And I'm deeply touched right now because it was through our best friends that we connected. When I moved to San Francisco, Lisa was like, or Asim was like, hey, my best friend lives there. And I'm like, okay, let's connect. I didn't know anybody there. We connected with you and Sound, your wife, and then we hang out there. And I'm very grateful, like how you took me in. I even met your parents back then in San
That's
Francisco.
right.
They were over. They made
Right.
some Indian food. And
Yep.
then I went to India, to Bangalore. I met them there too. I stayed with them for a few days.
Yeah.
And yeah. And last year, or 2 years ago,
2 years,
probably,
2022
you,
actually. Yeah.
2022 already, you were in
Yeah.
Germany. So we met like very spontaneous. I don't know. It also
Yeah.
happened like
I just happened to
divine timing.
message you while I was going to Stuttgart on a train to Stuttgart saying, hey, I remember Victoria used to live in Stuttgart, but I know she's in Mexico. But I just happened to message you to say, hey, are you by any chance in Germany? And you're like, yeah. And yeah, we decided to spontaneously meet up in the next day, which
Yeah,
was
yeah,
which was
yeah.
also beautiful.
Yeah.
And I got to like see a part of Germany from your perspective. You took us to that park, which was really nice.
I think Asim took us to that
Or was it a
part. I don't
scene?
think I don't think I've been there before, but anyway, Asim showed us a part of
That's
Germany that I also have not experienced before, so that was nice.
okay.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, but that was
Anyway,
really nice
so
to see
yeah.
you again. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. So then over the last few years, like this connection developed that has been very meaningful for me because actually today we want to talk about Tantra,
Hmm.
and we want to talk about our own personal experience with it. So back in San Francisco, when we met, I started diving deeper into yoga
Hmm.
and into meditation.
Yeah.
It was a very challenging time for me back then because I lost my father, I lost a dear friend, and I felt like completely lost. But that really helped me. And I remember us back then going to that church
Hmm.
in Mission District, right?
That's right.
Where we just
So it was a meditation group of it was called Mission Dharma. It was a Buddhist
Okay.
meditation group. And I believe there is this place in Marin County called Spirit Rock, which is like a kind of a
Hmm.
bougie meditation center in the Bay Area. And one of the teachers there was running this group. And we used to meet every Tuesday. And I remember we used to, and that was a really nice thing where we had this space where we would, both of us would
Yeah.
show up to this place and like, actually meditate for 45 minutes. And then there would be like a Dharma talk for like 45 minutes after. And yeah, it was really beautiful. I think that was probably the first time we connected like from a different place. Before that we were just hanging out and like, doing things. But I think just like meditating together with another person, I think adds a very different dimension to a relationship. Uh,
Mm.
where you're sitting in silence and doing nothing basically.
Yeah.
But just being okay with just doing something like that, and then maybe even sharing our experience of meditation after and really talking about how that landed for us, I think really helped in, forming that connection.
Yeah, it really did. And did we actually go there together for the first time, or have you been going there before? Because I remember my roommate back then, I think he was the one recommending it, if I remembered correctly.
So I
Or
started
have you
going
been there
there. No, I think
before?
I started going there in 2015. Uh,
Ah,
so it had only been a few months since I had gone.
aha, okay.
Yeah. Um, And yeah, I got really into it because 2015, I would say like 2014, 2015 is when I got into like spirituality. It all started with my with immense suffering, I suppose, of like moving to America and like, living here for like a year and then not really connecting with the culture, or in terms of like understanding, what America is. Like I had a sense of the American dream when I was in India, and I painted a vivid picture of how it would be. But then when I got to America, the reality was very different than what I expected. I was wasn't living in San Francisco at the time. I was living in a smaller city, suburb of San Francisco in San Mateo, and I was working in like a company where I was the youngest person, and most of the people around me were like in their mid 30s. And so when I looked at them, they seemed to have everything materially, right? Like from like very materially very comfortable. Obviously I was in tech, so people were making like good money and everything, but like I was like really questioning whether I want to be like them 10 years from now, or whether I would be like them 10 years from now. And that led to sort of an existential crisis for me. Um, and me coming from India, despite the fact that, India has this deep spiritual uh, culture, I had zero exposure to it because, based on my parents were very liberal and non-religious. So I in fact revolted against the religious aspect of India. And so when I came to America, I had nothing to kind of really support me. So it was like a free fall of like, there's nothing that can help me. And so I think through that process of suffering, meditation is something that spontaneously came up to me, um, through the internet or through talking to some friends. Uh, And so yeah, so that's kind of how I found Mission Dharma at some point, where I, Googled, is there a meditation group around me in the mission? And so then I found this place. But before that, like I think going to Burning Man was also, I think, influential. Um, and just meeting very different people, and to see that this is a possibility to live life in a completely different way, where uh, the focus can be to really liberate yourself from your own limitations and your own conditioning and our own beliefs that cause us to suffer. Like that was an idea that really resonated with me at the time. And I realized that, I don't know, despite not knowing anybody who actually was there, I just knew that like the deepest part of me just knew that that is a possibility. And I was like, I'm just gonna go all in, and or all in at the time. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew that I would want to pursue this path. So that's kind of how I found Mission Dharma, and that's how
Mm.
our relationship, spiritual relationship started.
And it's very interesting because around the same time, it also happened for me, like this kind of existential crisis, like in a very different way, because it was through the passing of my dad, like very unexpectedly. And then while I was in San Francisco, a dear friend of mine, she passed as well. So then I was as well at that point where like just nothing made sense anymore. Like I was also working there for Deutsche Telekom for a consultancy, and it was just like it just did not make any sense. Like going there every day, working, being unsatisfied, like there was no meaning for me. There was no meaning in that kind of work,
Mm-hmm.
but not only in that kind of work, it was more like in that way of living, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like at that point, I wasn't there yet. At that point, it was more the suffering that I experienced through the loss. I
Yeah.
remember I had difficulties to communicate. I couldn't use my words anymore. I couldn't speak anymore. I was just like completely out of it
Mm.
and completely disconnected, completely like in a different world, disconnected from myself, not knowing who I am any longer. And my mind was driving me crazy. My emotions were driving me crazy. Everything was just driving me kind of crazy. And then I started with Sheridan. Do you remember Sheridan?
He was the yoga
My,
teacher at
no,
yoga? No.
no.
Oh, this is
Sheridan,
your boyfriend at
my
the time.
friend. No, not my
Yeah.
boyfriend, my friend.
Oh, I remember
Like the
Shredan.
tall
Yes,
guy.
the tall
Yeah,
guy. That's right. We
the
went
guy we
camping
went
with him one
camping
time.
with.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Sorry, my memory
anyway,
is like has
yeah.
been degrading for the last many years, so I
It's
apologize.
it's okay. It's
Uh,
okay. Anyway, so with him, he was doing yoga. So with him, I actually went doing a lot of yoga,
yeah.
and we
Because
also
I
went
remember like there was this one yoga studio in the Castro that you really
in
loved,
the.
and
Oh my God,
you
with
would go
that
there
yoga teacher, that
with
was
that
really
yoga
really
teacher.
good.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
And you got really into it.
Yeah, so that was kind of like my way, like really like connecting, and that's part of like I feel like part of the journey
Yeah.
ever since, like the um like taking the body with me on that journey. For a long time, it was through yoga because I experienced those moments of connection with myself, connection with the divine, connection to something greater, which
Mm.
I did not know before. So the first step for me, it was through yoga, through the body. And
Hmm.
then I remember on the way to work in the bus, I saw that Buddhist center. I was living in the Pacific Heights, and
Hmm.
there was like also like a Buddhist center. So one time after work,
The
I
Zen, I think
went.
the Zen Meditation Center, right? In the Pacific
I
Heights?
don't. Yeah,
Yeah,
somewhere in the Pacific Heights. I don't remember
yeah.
the name. Anyway, I went there and it was weird. I never went back. I never went back. And
Mm.
then my roommate back then, I think he was the one, Dave, who told me about the church stuff there
Mm.
going on. And I remember that first time sitting there, like Mission District. It's loud there. It's intense, no? Like it's usually
You
like a
come out
very
of the BART station, yeah, and you're
yeah,
like, where am
yeah.
I? Yeah,
Yeah, and then you're in that church, and then like the sirens and the ambulance and loud, and then you're sitting there in stillness. And I thought I gonna go nuts. It was just like, what the heck is going on here? Like just sitting there. I remember he was just ding doing the dong or something, right?
right,
And then you just sit. Okay, so I remember those beginnings, and it was quite challenging back
right.
then to actually really be with myself and be
Hmm.
with what is. And
Mm.
but it has been a beautiful journey and a beautiful beginning actually, and I'm grateful for having done that part with you. And I also love to now reflecting back on that, how that journey evolved in ways that I did not imagine either at all. Sitting here
Yeah,
right now, who I am, what I'm doing, and yeah,
yeah,
talking with you about these kind of things. Yeah.
yeah. I really resonated with the aspect of, the suffering being in the body, or you were using your body maybe, or using yoga to get maybe more sensitive, because maybe you were having a hard time communicating what was going on. but and the first part of any spiritual practice, I think now that I understand, is to increase our sensitivity, which is how do we feel more? How can we understand what exactly is happening? Maybe it's like a pain in this particular part of the body, or it's like some feeling, or it's some thought, right? Like really being able to articulate what is going on is important. And I think that leads us right into what Tantra is. And I didn't know I didn't have any sort of understanding of any of these concepts, despite, me being Indian. Uh, like, uh, yeah, like Tantra to me at the time was, what the Western understanding of Tantra was, which is, some sort of sexual exploration, or like, maybe having better sex, right? But actually it's not, and what I've come to realize. And for me, I think, I spent a couple of years in 2019 to 2021, like studying Sanskrit. So, just to understand the language and just to understand these words. And I realized that Sanskrit also is a very beautiful language. It's been created to express these uh, experiences of seeking and of searching, and the words have been crafted to from a direct experience. So interesting. The word tantra has the word tan in it, and so tan refers to the body. And tra is, so just like German, where you have two separate words and you can join them together and they make a new word. Sanskrit has the same property where you join words. And so tra is a word that is used for a vehicle. And so so together, it's a vehicle for the of the body to go where, and it's basically to go beyond. And so we get similar words like mantra, which is the vehicle, but for the mind. So man is the mind. So it's very beautiful. And so the word in English, we get words like travel, transportation, and they also have the same root, which is the tra root.
Okay,
Uh,
interesting.
and
I remember my one of my yoga teachers, she actually they also did like Sanskrit teaching or whatever, like not Sanskrit teaching, but it was more about like explaining the words, like their roots, where they're coming from. And
mhm,
they actually used tra as tool.
also a tool. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a tool or a
So,
device. Yeah.
yeah. But I like somehow I connect with vehicle.
Uh-huh. But that's the
Yeah.
beauty of Sanskrit too. Like there's
Yeah.
like many meanings for same roots. And depending on how you use the root, like the word like changes its meaning. Um, but yeah, so my journey to I suppose Tantra was through Vipassana. So for folks who don't know what Vipassana is, it is a meditation technique where uh, you pay attention and you get sensitive to the starting with the breath, uh, and in this particular tradition that I studied Vipassana, you get sensitive to the body, specifically to like the different sensations that are happening in the body. And uh, through that process there is an experiential understanding of the fact that things are ephemeral, feelings are ephemeral, thoughts are ephemeral, and things keep on changing. And uh, really perceiving that, I was essentially resisting how I was experiencing the world. Like the world makes me feel a certain sensation, and a part of my mind was trying to resist it or not accept it or wanting things to be different. And I realized that, pushing there was this part of my mind that was trying to push away at the feeling, to say I don't like this feeling and I want to feel different. But my body was saying, hey, feel this feeling because it's there, and really feel it, and it's not uh, I guess the word I would say is it is safe to feel the feeling. But a part of my mind didn't believe it. And like I think there was that insane amount of suffering that I had to go through to really understand that, what, like every feeling is safe, if I just let it be. And yeah, that's been my process experiencing the body and really understanding what my body is trying to tell me, through really accepting every moment that this is what it is, and not having any sort of expectation. Because through that process, I even realized that nothing really is certain. Things, sensations and feelings and thoughts are just constantly happening, and there is no predictability, or there's no certainty, or there's no security either that's available. Yeah, and I'm very grateful for that process.
Yeah. I remember when back then when we went to that meditation, or like from there when I kept on my journey, at one point I realized it was about like getting rid of what is, like wanting it to be away. So that has been the journey for quite some years, to really want it to be away. But I remember some years ago I was doing a yoga training, and my yoga teacher, she was a rasa yoga teacher. What does rasa mean?
How do you
You
spell that?
remember?
RAJA?
Rasa, rasa. I remember it
So
has a meaning.
rasa is essentially the
The
word we
fruits
call
or something.
nectar. Yeah, is
The
like
nectar, yeah, exactly.
yeah,
The juice. Oh
the
my
juice.
God, I love it. I love it. The juice,
Yeah.
the nectar. So that's basically the way they were teaching it. I really resonated with the way they were like two female yoga teachers, two older women in their 50s, and beautiful, like the way they were teaching it, very unique in their style. Like the one, she was very playful, and the other one she went more deep, like with words, but she got you, like that experience that touched you deeply. And as I said, like the one, through her words, everything, like every class was like very, very well structured, like with stories, with the different goddesses and the gods, the Indian gods. And the other one, she was just like very playful and a little bit more chaotic, but like just them, like just that nectar that was just flowing through them, their own unique nectar.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then part of and I really resonated with that. It was really like my kind of style to
Yeah.
drop me into nothing and everything at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So then I did a training with them, with both of them. They were leading a yoga training, and they were teaching Tantra. And there's that Tantra teacher, his name is Christopher something.
I don't know.
Like he's quite famous.
Okay.
But he's teaching like the Tantra philosophy, I think. Anyway. So we were diving a little bit into like the philosophical part of Tantra, and for the first time I connected with Tantra in a very different way as well, because before I also just heard it like in the sexual context. For the first time, it was like there was like a whole new world opening up for me. And then
Christopher Wallace. Sorry, I got
Christopher Wallace, right? Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah. Thank
The
you.
Recognition Sutras, I think, was one of his books that he got famous with.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I know is that they talked about that nectar, that juice that is flowing through you,
The
like that
rasa.
life, the rasa,
Yes.
yeah, like
Yeah.
that life force,
Yep.
basically. And they talked about like, yeah, being with it, feeling it.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of different approaches with that. And that's a journey that I've been on the last few years. That feeling it, yeah. But it always depends on from what state we're feeling it, from what consciousness we're feeling it. Because for a long time, or for some time, I experienced that my body got kind of like addicted to those kind of feelings.
Right.
All right. It's like, ooh, yeah, it's there again. Bring it on, the anger. Where is it?
Yeah.
So like I was experiencing that intensity into all different kind of direction. I'm using the anger right now because I feel there's a lot of suppression there happening with anger, for example. It's something bad, something
Mm-hmm.
that we don't feel. And I
Mm.
feel, again, that is just part of the journey to really giving yourself the permission to feel that.
Yeah.
And there's a difference that I noticed for myself, a very fine, a very subtle difference between like feeling it and really getting hooked by that feeling when we start feeling it because we have suppressed it for such a long time,
Mm.
and feeling it to just let it flow, like to let that nectar, that juice flow through you.
Yeah.
And that has been a very big game changer. And again, it's
Mm.
like very something that I'm noticing when I'm working with my clients. Like, okay,
Mm.
when are we getting like really like addicted to these kind of states, feeling them?
Mm.
Whereas just like letting them flow in the
Yeah.
beauty, like seeing the beauty that they are, not getting hooked by it, giving it the
Yeah.
permission to just feel it.
Like
And
what I'm sensing, underneath what you're saying is, the addictive quality of the mind itself, right? Like, so
yeah,
we have some maybe unexamined beliefs about maybe I should feel this, or I should have this particular emotion, or I shouldn't, right? There's this sort of judgment of, maybe I need to feel it enough for it to go away, right? So there's this part of, at least for me, that's,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
for me, at least coming from the world of, Vipassana was one part of my training, I suppose, or my journey, uh, which maybe through my misunderstanding, was that there was this limited set of sensations which I classify as bad or negative that need to be exhausted, right? And every time something came up, that what you're talking about was this energy of like, yes, something new is here, time for me to work on it and time for me to let it go, right? So that also became, you can say, an addiction where I was constantly trying to fix an unpleasant sensation.
Mm, yeah,
And so there's
yeah.
this wanting to always get rid of it, which I didn't realize was the cause of the sensation to persist, or was, there was this initial shock that I experienced. Let's say somebody yells at me on the street. There's that initial shock, but that which I perceived as a sensation on the body. And then a part of my mind was like, all right, now time to get to feel this and work on this, right? Which was, I think, an addiction, like what you're describing, and it was a waste of time and energy, because that end.
I don't think it's a waste. I don't think it was,
I know
sorry
what
for
you're
interrupting
right,
you.
right. I
Okay.
just I just mean that it's not. I wouldn't say waste. I would say I realized a part of my mind was keeping that thing in motion rather than just letting it be and standing back to see, okay, this has happened, and really seeing the context of the fact that it has happened because of the situation and because of my past and all of that, and just accepting that there was this action which my mind was taking, and there was a resistance which was saying I need to get rid of it. There was an underlying tinge, and I think that tinge has fallen away for me. And so
Hmm.
like now it just happens and I'm like, okay, great, anger has arisen, good. But like there's no feeling of wanting to change it or wanting to do something else with it.
Yeah,
um
yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, eh,
And I, like, from my personal experience, it was necessary. Like that was just part
right.
of the greater unfolding. And I
Yeah.
feel like this is really what Tantra in this way kind of taught me.
Yeah.
Like that everything that is that nectar, is that juice.
Hmm.
It's just about, okay, how do I perceive it?
Yeah.
And if I
Yes.
perceive it
Yeah.
as the juice, as the nectar, as the life force, as whatever it is, the perfection in that moment, the more I'm actually able to experience myself.
Mm.
but not in that limited way, in that attached way. It's just like phew, just flowing. So we are in that constant flow. And
Right.
that's what I love. And
Mm.
that's what kind of like coming back to what they taught me back then in their tantra class about like, okay, like that nectar, that juice, like just like be with what is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also noticed for me, and that's what I'm noticing when I'm working with women, because there is so much shame, so much guilt, so much anger that
Hmm.
is suppressed, not being felt, not being experienced. And we label it as bad. We label it as,
Right.
okay, something that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
And
So
the
you're talking
more
about like the Western concept of reframing, right? Like I think I've heard the reframing where something happens and we generally say, "Oh, this is bad," or like I have a low self-esteem, for example, and but we can reframe that to say, "Oh, actually, it's a positive thing," right? Like so, our relationship to it maybe becomes a more we are able to see it a little bit more in a healthier way. Maybe is that what you're maybe saying?
I would take it even further than reframing, because reframing for me sounds like a construct created with the mind. What I'm talking about is really like experiencing it,
Yeah.
like moving back into oneness with source, with what is.
Hmm.
That's what I'm kind of talking about.
Yeah. Right.
Like the full on experience.
So then you wouldn't you say you could say it's not even positive, right? It's like even the label positive is a mind label, right? Like so you're even abandoning labels to just be with you become the feeling, right? You're like this is me and I'm fully embracing this without it saying it's good or bad because
It is.
that is the mind coming and trying to analyze. And
Yeah.
so the mind
Yeah.
stops and like you're fully with the emotion and you're like, yes, this is me. And so that energy,
Yeah.
whether it is, taking you in causing you to yell, who knows, right? Like what might happen because of accepting the energy, but you're allowing it
Yeah.
to express itself.
Yeah. And I feel and I believe, based on my own personal experience and the work with my clients, like that anger, like really opening. I love it when I have men in front of me, when I have women in front of me who crack open when they give themselves the permission to feel that anger.
Mm.
But again, not in a destructive way. Very often we are feeling it, like part of us holding it down, another part of us like kind of like, okay, wanting to feel it, wanting to release it.
Mm.
But it's from a destructive nature. It's not from this acceptance that it is there, not from this acceptance that is actually beauty, that it's actually just potential. And that's what it is. It is energetic potential, energy
Yeah.
in motion, the emotion that wants to be moved. And however that looks like.
Mm.
you know but then what I'm noticing when we're opening that up, like when we're giving ourselves the permission to feel that. And last year I felt so much anger. I did not even know that I had so much anger within me. I
Mm.
felt so much sadness. I did not even know.
Yeah.
Giving myself the permission to feel it. And as you said before, what did you say? I How did you say it? um It was not, you didn't say it was wrong when I interrupted you. What did you say?
It's neutral, right? Yeah. Did I
No,
say
no,
it's
no.
sort of
It was
neutral?
something before. It was something before. I Anyway, um, when it was about the anyway. So yes, in that moment, that's what wanted to be expressed. So very often we're then judging ourselves
Yeah.
for expressing what wants to be expressed.
Mm.
And the moment we step back off that judgment and just notice it and let it move us, is the moment it moves quickly.
Hmm.
And the more we're getting into it, like really letting it move us, the faster it moves.
Hmm.
And there are so many different ways of doing it. And I know um, I really, really love to play whatever with emotions, because I feel
Hmm.
it's such a great key, not key, it's such a great potential to really feel ourselves. So then all the anger that I experienced last year, that sadness, that frustration, it opened me up
Mhm.
to a whole different level of love,
Hmm.
to a whole different level of connection with myself and with others. I developed a compassion. I developed a connection with Source, with the divine that is divine. So, what I want to say is, it's basically bringing it together into oneness, right? Like the duality, melting it into one.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Um,
Yeah,
I think like one thing that resonated is emotion is just energy, right?
it
It's
is.
and like the way I experience emotion or a feeling is just some sensation in my body, and part of my mind tries to name it as it's anger or anxiety or fear or sadness or happiness too, but it's nothing but some energy, and
It
then the
is. Yeah,
naming part of my mind trying to box it up, right? And I feel that if we allow ourselves to stay in that gap, you can say, before the naming happens and after the perception of it happens, if we just stay there, it's no longer the emotion. It's like then you have come in contact with something else, and yeah, that place is like you could describe is the divine, and just staying there, that energy changes to something completely different, and I don't even know what word you can use to describe it. I can say that in 2021 when my mom passed, like I also experienced like tremendous amounts of grief. Like I didn't even know that I had so much grief in me. um, and it's interesting the way it happened is I was on a flight when she passed, and when I was in my layover, that's when I got the call from my dad, and that's when I found out that she's gone. And so then I had about 5 hours before I got to where my dad lived. So I had like 5 hours to myself to process the grief in isolation on a flight. It was night, it was dark. So it was like, I was in a meditation for 5 hours, or, at least what that felt like, where a lot of grief, a lot of, uncomfortable sensations all over. But I don't know, just that experience of being with the grief just allowed me to not resist it. I didn't have to talk. The air hostesses also saw me and they were like, all right, I'm not even going to engage with this person. They just walked away. So it was actually really beautiful. And by the end of it, I felt like I was obviously sad about the situation that, my mom is no longer there, but it was this weird sense of acceptance of, okay, this is it. And this has happened. And the grief has been experienced, and it has been and there's a dissolution, I can say, like I just felt like that grief dissolved, and it became something else. So it was like what you're saying, maybe it was love or compassion that emerged from that place. And so like when I met my dad, of course I was sad, but I felt like I was no longer thinking about my suffering. And there was this my ability to engage with my relatives and everyone who was there in a completely different way. And I was mind blown by that, you know. Yeah. And so I really think that being with the feeling, or just completely experiencing it, something magical happens. And yeah, there is like every one of us has this divinity within, which is always operating. And so if we allow it to operate, I think magic is the outcome.
it really is. Yeah.
Yeah. Oof. Hmm. Ooh. Okay. So what are you up to these days?
What do you feel right now?
I'm feeling very blissed out. Um, hmm. It's interesting, like my just stare, like just looking at the screen, like I'm obviously seeing your face. Um, but it just feels like I'm seeing something else. I'm seeing a different face. Uh, I don't know. It's weird.
I had this, I had exactly the same experience
Really?
right now. I was like, wait, who's that?
Yeah, it's like your face disappeared and somebody else's face appeared. So it was kind of
I know. I had the same. I was like, who's that guy? It was a guy though.
it was a guy. Yeah, I mean it
Yeah.
was still a person with long hair.
It
Uh,
was with yeah.
uh,
Anyway, wow. Okay. So yeah, I feel that really is the magic. And there are different ways of experiencing that magic, that blissed out state, or that deep connection to oneself and then to the other. And the emotions, as you said, it's just energy that wants to be moved.
mm,
And they are a beautiful gateway to that blissed out state, I would say. Detached from what is and connected to what is, if that makes any sense. But
mm,
and there are different ways. There are moments where I feel like what is very powerful right now is to just really feel it in its intensity.
yeah.
And giving myself the permission to feel it in its intensity, I also feel the other spectrum to a whole different intensity.
Hmm.
And and then on the other hand, there are moments where it's like, okay, noticing, am I getting right now into that state of I want this to be gone, I want this to be different? What is?
Yeah.
And then these are the moments where I'm choosing to, okay, just be with it.
Mm.
And I'm just in awe, like how quickly it dissolves, right?
Yeah.
When we just like nothing, like just sitting with it. And I forgot about it. I forgot about the power of it because,
Because it is not real, right? I think it's just a made up thought or an idea. And the moment you recognize that I'm making this up or I'm making this feeling up, it dissolves, right? Like there is this, yeah,
I'm it depends. Sometimes, yeah. I mean, sometimes, yeah, sometimes quite quickly, but other times
yeah,
it might take a little time, right?
sure.
And
But
depending on
eventually it
like,
goes.
but
Eventually it goes.
eventually it goes. Eventually
Yeah.
it goes, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are moments where you might, or the way I experience, where I'm like, okay, this is just made up anyway. This is just not the truth.
Yeah.
And then like, oh, okay, it's true. It's not the truth. Okay, over and out, and remembering the truth. But then there are moments where it's like, this is not the truth. And then it's like, no, but I'm the truth. And like, you're not the truth. So then there's like that kind of battle going on. And then it's like, of course, like a made up battle. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's still like in this human experience, like a human battle going on within me. And then, yeah.
I
And then,
like maybe it's like the energy of that battle needs to be exhausted out, right? Like
yeah,
there is
yeah,
some part of the mind which is trying to express itself with this thought to say, I want something to be different, or I want this thing, and then
yeah,
has a certain
yeah.
energy to it, and that needs to be felt or seen or and let go of or transformed.
Transformed, yeah, letting it
Yeah.
be, letting it,
Uh,
yeah.
like it's funny, like like last week, we went for a swing dancing lesson,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I feel like these days my practice is all about like maybe just noticing what are the moments in which this ego comes up, right? Like, or this sense or this feeling of I am separate from this experience, or the separation happens. And so it's interesting. It's that, when you're in physical contact, speaking of Tantra, right? Like physical contact is also um, a way or a practice to notice that there is some separation happening. Like sometimes you touch another person and there's immediately this like, oh, this jarring, at least that, so with the swing dancing lesson, we were dancing with like, there were maybe about 40 people there. So, with every like minute or so, you swap partners. So I was, touching and holding hands of like lots of people. And then I would just notice that sometimes there would be this initial separation that happens, and I hold somebody's hand and I'm like, whoa, what happened? And then it, comes back. And I feel like that is essentially like the recognition of like, oh, there's something here that I'm resisting, some idea or this person, or I don't like this person, or I like this person, right? Like there's always this I that comes up in that moment. And I found that to be I have never done much of like partner dancing before. I was like, oh, this,
Okay.
with this process of using the body and dancing, you can use this to recognize what are the different moments where the sense of I does come up, and use that as a
Mm.
practice and a tool to go beyond. Um, yeah, I just found that interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe I would join this class and do it more.
The swing dancing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also feel I have been taking salsa and bachata classes.
Hmm.
But it's interesting because with the salt, oh, I know,
What happened?
the screen turned black, but it's all back again. Okay.
It was a blip, a blip that was
Yeah.
experienced by the computer.
Yeah. Um, so I did take salsa classes. I've been taking salsa classes for quite some year. I started when I was living in Copenhagen,
Hmm.
so several years ago, like on and off, on and off. But then now in Mexico, I was just dancing more. And there again, like there are the classes, the salsa, the classes where you are really yeah, where you're just switching partner like after a few seconds, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, it is very interesting, like the different connection you have with different people there.
Hmm.
But then I noticed for me the bachata. I mean, the bachata, I don't know, bachata is a little bit more sensual. Like you are really like with your partner, it's also like a partner dance. You're really like this more or less, like really body on body.
Okay.
And yeah, like very sensual. It's a very sensual dance. Um, which then I chose to not go to the classes, which then I chose to do private classes instead, because this kind of like sensual or this very close movements, body on body, I was like, I don't feel comfortable.
Hmm.
Not com I don't know if it's comfortable, but I just don't want to do it with anybody.
Right.
So I decided then to take a private teacher and do it. It was a woman, and do it with that woman,
Hmm.
that class. Where again, there were like certain moments where it's like, okay, that's kind of weird, but anyway.
Yeah.
And like when there's bachata, when they play bachata, and then guys are coming where you just don't feel it, I just don't do it.
Yeah.
And then also, of course, it can be like, okay, the ego, okay, the separateness, whatever, but
But it is what it is. Yeah.
it is what it is. And there again, like inviting like that whole experience on, like really,
Hmm.
yeah, if you don't feel it, then you don't feel it.
Yeah.
Of course, I understand your perspective of going beyond that, but yeah, whatever. I
Yeah.
feel like I got to that point where it's like, okay, giving myself that full experience in whatever direction it might guide me.
Yeah. I think also like, recognizing that you have the permission, you have authority or the permission to like do what you want. Like you want to dance with this
Exactly.
person, you can, and you can say, all right, I'm not feeling okay. And that sometimes it's hard to even say no, right? Like that's also like a subtle resistance towards maybe looking good or looking a certain way or not seeming like you want to I don't know, be showcase that maybe you're negative against this person, so you just like end up doing it anyways, despite the fact that maybe there's a part of your mind that says, actually, I don't feel like doing it. So there's all these different complexities that are happening. uh, and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there is no
yeah.
right or wrong thing. Yeah.
There is no right, there is no wrong. There is you
Yeah.
listening to you and you choosing to expand out of that limitation that you're experiencing and not making it that limitation, but just
Hmm.
making it the experience, making it about the experience. And this is what I feel like Tantra really guided me towards, to give
Hmm.
myself the permission to experience myself really, really fully with all that is.
Yeah.
From a, yeah, detached but still full on.
Yeah. Detached from mind but engaged with everything else, I suppose. Maybe that's a good way to
Yeah,
put it. uh,
yeah, yeah,
um, that's really great. How are we doing on time? I think it's been almost an hour.
yeah. We said we're gonna do like around an hour. So I think that's a beautiful, yeah, beautiful way to end this conversation. Is there anything else you would like to add, or anything like you would like to summarize, or some last thoughts, or whatever it is that you would love to say? Now is your time.
I really enjoy talking to you. I always love these conversations. I always feel like I learn something new, and even just sharing something with you helps me understand my own self a bit better. So it's always great to talk to you. Um, and yeah, I think Tantra is something that I have not consciously focused on, but it sounds like everyone is doing Tantra in their life. Everyone is using their body to experience the diversity of this world. And we can use the body to really understand how we're engaging or not engaging, and seeing the blocks. And yeah, and then recognizing those blocks and, trying to see those blocks as just an unexamined belief about something. Um, Yeah, I think all of this is really beautiful. Like there's so many different paths, and Tantra is certainly one of them. And uh, I've really enjoyed like just learning about it and trying it and experiencing the magic of Tantra.
And I mean, you did dive. We're not gonna we won't start that discussion now or start diving into it. But you actually did study the tantric philosophy as well, for a little while. Maybe that's something
Hmm.
for another time to talk
Yeah.
about. But for now, also I love that you brought it up, like tantra, like the vehicle of the body or beyond the body?
It's a vehicle for the body to
For
go
the
beyond.
body to go beyond the body. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's basically it, no?
yeah,
That's basically it. We're using it, not using sounds, yeah, but we're using
yeah.
it.
We're using it because
We're using it. We're playing with the
we're
body to
playing
go
with it. I
beyond the
think playing
body.
is a great word.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love playing.
Yeah.
And and I feel, as I said at the beginning, like that yoga journey for me, like was the connection deeper with my body, like the connection deeper with my emotions, feeling my emotions, like it's that whole unfolding to then like experience yourself in every moment
Hmm.
fully. And I feel this has been my opening, like really that permission to
Mm.
feel that juiciness, to feel that nectar, to just feel it
Mm.
flowing through you in whatever moment, whatever it is that is going on out there that
Yeah.
might want to hold me back, or that I think will hold me back from experiencing that juiciness, that aliveness within me. And again,
Mm.
aliveness, juiciness, it has so many different forms, but just letting that form be whatever it is and choosing who I
My,
am related
my
to
my
that.
teacher uses the word the taste,
The taste.
the juice or the taste, when he says,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
this person has the taste, which means that, they are living that reality, and it's not just, it's like philosophical. It's like, yes,
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
like I have the
Yeah.
juice. I can feel the juice.
And
Uh,
and that's it. Like each and every one of us, we have our own juice. We just
hmm.
got to give ourselves the allowance to access it,
Hmm.
and let it flow, and let it, yeah, just like feel ourselves fully again from a more abundant, from a more whole perspective. And that's what Tantra is for me, like that juiciness, that aliveness, that, yeah, everything that is, yeah, my way, you do, I do my way, you do your way. And that's the most beautiful thing that is. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's
Uh,
right.
that's like a great way to do it, because there is no
Yeah,
one way, right?
there
Like
is
it's
no
like
one
there is a
way.
way that works for me. It may not
Yeah,
work for you, but there are so many other things that you can
yeah,
try that works for you. And that's the beauty
yeah.
of it. I love it.
I love
And
it
and
too.
and there is no, like, everyone is walking an uncharted path because everyone has their own stuff to work with, and nobody has the exact same thing. So no path is the same, despite the fact that we try to organize it and say this is how it should be, these are the
Yeah,
steps, but
yeah,
everybody
yeah,
experiences it so differently.
yeah.
And it's a unique journey, and everyone has to learn their own lessons and their own ways in which they operate. uh, and but the I think the fact is that it works, and and it's a beautiful journey, and the end result is a place where everything
There's
is
no
there.
end result.
There is
There
no
is
end
no end
result. Yes, the end
result.
result is
Yeah.
there is no
The
end
end
result.
result is there is no end result. In the end result is that there is no end result,
Yeah,
because it's just this ongoing journey of
exactly.
like uncovering, discovering, experiencing more juiciness when you allow
Yeah,
yourself to follow your journey, to follow your path, to follow whatever comes along on that journey, and move into that state of wholeness, of bliss, of love, however you want to call it, blessed out, blissed out,
yeah.
being with it all. Yeah.
Beautiful. Love it.
I love it too, and I love you, and I'm very grateful for this conversation. I'm grateful for you, and I can't wait for more. Thank you, Punit.
Thank you, Victoria. Love you
Take
too.
care. Take
Take
care.
care.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Ciao, ciao, ciao.